Pro.Gnosis, a podcast with Armon Ree.
Welcome everyone, this is Pro.Gnosis episode 16, and today we have a very interesting guest. We have Talis, who originally is from Germany, but I discovered that he actually lives here in my home Portugal. And from videos that I've seen, his story of getting to Portugal is also very interesting. Maybe you would like to shed some light on that as well. But mainly, he is here to, although we can touch on several topics, to address the topic of human design, of which he is, what do you call yourself, instructor? What is the exact term?
I'm a human design guide. That's what I would say.
Okay. Yes, he's a projector like me, so he was born to be a guide, apparently, according to this tradition. So, hi, Talis, and welcome to Pro.Gnosis.
Thank you very much for this invitation. I am curious what we will talk about because I have no idea what's going to happen. This is usually what happens when I'm down for an interview. It's just, coming out of me. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, same here. And to be honest, I have... for sure, one topic that I would like to talk with you, and the rest is completely free flow, and that's how I usually do these episodes anyway, and it works for me, and that's the way that. Well, you've done my chart. I should begin there. That Talis did a reading on my natal chart according to the human design tradition. And it was very, very interesting. He touched upon several points that were new to me. I already knew something about projectors, but he went more in depth into the gates and channels. That's what they're called. And he really dissected some parts that, of course, internally, deep down, I knew, but was never, in the fore of my mind. So that prompted me to bring him or invite him to Pro.Gnosis because I felt that since a few months back, when human design came into my radar, I was completely unaware of its existence up until a few months back. That it brought to my own contemplation of reality a very important piece of the puzzle, and I'm sure that it will bring more. But that very important piece of the puzzle was that, in my structured psychological, spiritual view of the human psyche, let's say, I view the ego, and here I treat the ego in a different way as the usual treatment, because ego is usually associated with a mental character, while I put the mental character in a separate position, lower than the ego. I view the ego as the frontier man, let's say the bouncer between the conscious and the subconscious, or if one prefers, between the life in reality and the timeless essential life. And I treated everyone's ego as intuitive. I thought that the input from that ego authority was always intuitive until I found that human design had different types of authority that work in quite disparate ways sometimes. For example, an emotional is completely different from a splenic like mine, right? That gave me that piece that I was missing. I understood finally why there were people that seemed completely incapable of making a decision in the moment, of making a decision based purely and entirely on intuition. And there was nothing wrong with them. I finally realized that point. So
Mhm.
with that said, Talis, I don't know if you have any initial comments about what I've said, because I would like really for us to delve deeper into this.
Totally, yeah. The first comment I would like to give on that is my background before I met human design. I was deeply involved in esotericism, mysticism, spirituality, shamanism. Like I really dove deep into this. And I also grew up with parents that, weren't that normal parents. They, showed me Bleep the movie and The Secret and all of this when I was like 16 or something. So I grew up with a lot of philosophies and alternative mental paths that the usual European is not encountering in all of this busyness at a very early stage, obviously. And for sure, that shaped me a bit in my thinking, in my path of how I lived life. But human design gave me, as you already said, for yourself, it really gave me missing pieces for this holographic puzzle, because it's all of this occult stuff is, it always has this connotation of could be, perhaps, maybe, we don't know, maybe you only will know, all of this wishy-washy stuff that, never really putting it as a fact, because, if you put it as a fact, people will come and try to debunk it. But if you let it flow and be in the air, it can exist a bit longer, or even for decades or centuries. And naturally, I'm a suspicious guy, and I doubt things. It's not like that I am against philosophies and this or that. I always look for what is inside of that I can understand, grasp, or find meaning in. So, regards this intuition, what you said, this is a big thing, because obviously we all think we are all intuitive, and we all grow up, and at one point we get this message of, oh, listen to your heart, listen to your intuition, listen to your gut, all of those things, and nobody really knows what it means, so it's just a phrase. It just becomes spiritual phrases. Listen to your heart, go with the flow. All of those things is worth nothing if you don't know what is actually mechanically meant by that. And human design is showing us very clearly, obviously, in a sense, you need to experiment and validate for yourself, but it shows it clearly in its own knowledge base that intuition is not for everybody the base for making decisions. And that is the beauty of human design. It claims that every human being has a very unique process of making a decision. And now comes the big part. It is never, in any case, ever the mind. And the mind in human design is almost equal to the ego in the spiritual realm. Okay? Even though we have the ego in human design, but it has a different meaning. It's a very different thing. So this to differentiate is already interesting, because it becomes something that is more graspable and not so wishy-washy when we talk about the ego. Eckhart Tolle and all of those people who established this word, the ego. It is, in my perspective, merely the mind. It is this controlling aspect in us that doesn't want something bad or negative for us, but it is programmed and conditioned and formed and shaped by a lot of different circumstances to keep us safe, to keep us in comfort, to keep us in a certain state that feels secure. But this is not necessarily what it means to be human, obviously. Yeah. So this is my take on this.
And it often is the case that seeking that comfort, the mental character becomes accustomed to discomfort. and treats that discomfort as the rule, and it is the thing, and it should be endured, and it should be there, and it's just life. Life is like this, and that kind of
Exactly.
thing. So I know very well what you're talking about, and the mind as treated by human design equates, in my view, to the mental character, what I call mental character, which is a personality that interacts with the world and has a healthy place. And I know that in human design, it is treated that way as well. It has a healthy place. It is, the part that interacts but does not really is there to make any decisions. But once it receives that input of what the decision should be, acts accordingly, right? And performs whatever actions and, thinks in a way of, getting that done, that decision done, and putting it into motion. So I agree entirely there. And also with the vision of the ego, it's not just Eckhart Tolle and
No, it's
people
just
like
one
that.
name. One name.
Yeah. And even in academic circles, psychological academic circles, the ego is treated sort of as like the villain. And one thing that I've come to realize, and of course I know that in human design, the ego is actually one of the centers, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Of the chart. But I treat it in my language, in my vocabulary, the one I came up with even before I even dreamed that there was something like human design, was that the ego equates to the authority. So whatever authority one has, that is the ego. In the sense of being, the ego to me is the decision center and the filter. And so filter in the sense of, okay, you have a context, and that center is going to filter the context and extract the meaning, the direction, what is valid from what isn't, and then perform a decision based on it, which is completely outside of the mental character. Then transmits, if the mental character is paying attention to the ego, if the connection to that authority is established, then transmits to the mental character, and the mental character, performs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting because when I came across, and it was quite interesting because, like many people, I think, came across HD by, someone coming up to them and saying, let me do your chart, right? And let me see the type that you are. And when, it came up projector, I didn't know what that meant. And, there were a few pointers like, oh, projector, means this and that. And you don't have your own energy center. And I was like, what do you mean I don't have my energy center? Are you talking about, that kind of thing? And energy center in the sense of, generating energy. So, and that kind of thing. And so I started exploring more because I was, this seems intriguing.
Yes.
And what I found was that it matched so well what I was already, discovering in my own path without knowing of HD. And I work very much on the basis of, I pick bits and pieces of all traditions, but I don't subscribe to one entirely. And there are things that are a bit wishy-washy in HD too, let's be honest. I mean, that whole story about the voice, I'm sorry, but I don't buy it.
For sure. For sure.
I don't buy that. But the practical approach that HD brings to the table is something that aligns very well with my approach, because I'm always very practical. I am always about walking the talk. I mean, if you discover something, you act it upon your life, right? You discover something that makes sense. It doesn't stay on the theoretical. Otherwise, it's just a mind game, right? It's just a game for, to entertain